Hi, boys and girls. This week we're going to finish up the story of Esther. So I'm going to be reading to you number 225. It's called The Queen's Request. And then number 226 called A Day to Be Remembered. Now remember, Queen Esther is Jewish, but King Xerxes doesn't know that. And King Xerxes has been influenced, if you know that word. He's been, other people in his kingdom have decided that they don't like Jewish people and they wanted to make a law that was going to catch the Jewish people and have them all caught and killed all on a certain day. And a man named Haman was in charge of making that bad law. Xerxes was tricked in a way into making that law. He should have paid more attention, of course. And Esther's uncle, Mordecai, was saying to her, maybe for such a time as this, God has placed you right here in this palace, in this place where you can go ask the king for help. Now, we would think that would be a simple thing to go ask the king for help, but in that day, if you stepped before the king to ask him for help without being invited first, he would lower his, it's not a sword, it's a scepter, but imagine like a big pole, if you will, and he would say, no way, right? He would say something official, and the guards would come and take you, and you'd be killed. So she knew that by even stepping before the king without being invited, she was taking her life in her own hands. She was basically saying, okay, God, it's up to you to protect me. And so let's see what happens when Esther goes before King Xerxes to ask for help for the Jewish people. Story number 225. Esther's heart beat fast and her thoughts swirled, but her mind was made up. She would take her life in her hands and go to the king. She had one chance. If he was in a good mood, he might hold out to her the golden scepter in his hand. That would be a sign that her life would be spared. She sent to Mordecai, asking the Jews to fast, which means to not eat that day, and to pray while she did the same. Then she put on her royal robes and went trembling to the doorway of the throne room. The king looked up and saw her. Now here's the moment, right, where the king could say, I didn't ask for you. How lovely she looks, he thought. How could I have forgotten her for so long? And with a smile, he held out his scepter. That meant Esther was safe. What is your request? The king asked. Please come to dinner with me tonight and bring Haman, Esther answered. The king was delighted, and so was Haman. That night, Esther gave them an invitation to dinner for the next evening, too. I will tell you my request tomorrow, she told the king. Even the queen thinks I'm extra special, Haman told his wife. Now, I want to ask you, is that why the queen has Haman coming to the dinner? Now remember, Haman was the guy who helped trick the king into making the bad law. Do you think Esther is inviting him to dinner because she likes him? That's not why. But Haman, of course, thinks it's all about him. He thinks he's awesome. So he's pretty thinking kind of crooked, isn't he? Even the queen thinks I'm awesome, Haman told his wife, and then he added, but I can never be happy as long as Mordecai lives. Well, then build a gallows and have him hanged, his wife suggested. Haman went to work at once. That's like building a big thing where you would kill somebody. Eee, sounds awful, doesn't it? Haman set to work at once, and then he went to the palace to ask the king's permission to kill Mordecai. That night the king had not been able to sleep. Read me the royal records, he ordered. I guess reading the royal records would help him sleep. When the servant read about the plan to take the king's life, which Mordecai had told the king about and stopped, King Xerxes asked, did we ever thank Mordecai for that? No, his servant replied. Haman, waiting to be admitted to the king, was quickly sent for. And the king asked Haman, what should be done for the man I wish to reward? The king asked Haman. Oh, he's thinking about rewarding me, Haman thought. What do you notice about Haman? What do you notice about Haman? So the king suggested a royal parade around the city on the king's own horse. That's a good idea, the king said. Go find Mordecai and put Mordecai on my own horse and give him a parade through the city yourself, announcing that Mordecai is the man I want to reward. Was Haman happy about that? What do you think Haman thought? Was that Haman's plan? That was not Haman's plan. That was exactly the guy Haman wanted to kill, and now he has to put him on the king's horse and walk him around the city. Oh, wow. Haman was boiling with rage, but he dared not say anything against the king. When at last Haman reached home, his wife shook her head sadly. Your luck has turned, she said. That Mordecai is going to get the better of you in the end. I'm not sure about Haman's wife either, are you? At Esther's second dinner banquet, Haman was silent, and he was sick at heart. But the king was in good spirits. He smiled at Esther and sipped his wine, and then he asked, What is it you want, Queen Esther? You can have anything you want, up to half my kingdom. I only ask for my life and the life of my people, Your Majesty, Esther answered quickly and quietly. Through one man's wicked plan, my whole people have been condemned to death. Who dares do such a thing? The king asked angrily. Esther pointed to Haman, sitting white-faced and speechless. There is the man who would do such a thing. The king got to his feet in a fury, and he stormed out to the garden, where he paced up and back. Haman fell at the queen's feet and begged Queen Esther for mercy. But the king returned right then and said, How dare you touch my queen? A servant came up and said, Sir, Haman has already built a place taller than the city walls to kill Mordecai on. Well, the king said, then go kill Haman on that same thing. Mordecai instead will take his place and will be prime minister of the government. Haman was dragged by the guards from the room. Then Esther begged the king to change the rules, to change the law that was standing in place to kill all the Jewish people. Oh, once made, my laws can never be changed, King Xerxes replied. But you may add what you wish to the law, and it shall be sealed with my seal. Mordecai drafted an added order giving all Jews the right to arm and defend themselves on the day appointed for their murder. When that day at last arrived, many people were afraid to attack the Jews. They knew that Mordecai and Esther were both Jews and that they had the king's protection. The Jews showed no mercy to their enemies. And the Jews have never forgotten Esther's courage and risking her life for her people. And to this very day, the book of Esther is read on the day that Haman chose, that instead became the day that God was faithful. So the Jewish people, even today, boys and girls, celebrate this holiday. It's called Purim. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Mrs. Littikainen would be able to say it perfectly. I don't know if you've ever celebrated it. I had a friend who celebrated Jewish holidays, and we had dinner. My husband and I had dinner at their house to celebrate this holiday, and it was in the springtime. So this time of year makes me think of it. It's a wonderful holiday. You might want to look it up and have your mom and dad learn some more about the holiday that Jewish people celebrate Queen Esther and how God was faithful to his people. All right, so that's the story for today. I love you, boys and girls. Remember to thank God out loud every day. Bye.